This Hello, this is Amanda Matson again, and I have another student request. And I'm taking like feedback as these are going. So if you have some feature that you want, go ahead and let me know. One thing that I noticed the last time I was watching a student watch a video was that they lost track of where I was and where I was going. And so I'm trying to add a little bit more of that this time. And so today is Tuesday. One of the things that we're going to do is initialize our data. So I'm going to do that slower, hashtag, and then space to make it heading 1. And hit initialize data. And this is where we're going to do things like describe data, load the file, like that kind of thing. And then after our data are initialized, hashtag space, we're going to prepare 2 columns. Actually, yeah, 2 columns. This test that I want to get ready to do is called an ANOVA test. It's an analysis of variance. And it will take 2 columns, and it needs to have a category column and a value column. And so like this side will have things like red and blue and green and more red and more green and more blue, and then all of the corresponding numbers that go with it. And so I have 2 columns, but it's like 3 or 4 different data sets that are part of it. And so I'm preparing 2 columns, make the data fit the format that I need. Like that'll be the part that's next. And this includes things like check for formatting, by formatting like numeric, like I want to know that my numbers are actually numbers, and outliers, like that kind of thing. And then finally, hashtag space, we're going to run the ANOVA test. And this is analysis of variance. That's what ANOVA stands for. So we need like multiple data sets. And the question is, do these all behave the same? So that's where we are. So back up to here, initializing the data. The data I've got, I got them from data.gov when I Googled like solar eclipse data. And what they did was they tracked the data during an eclipse over some water, and they were checking, I'm going to get this wrong, they were checking the balance of things like pH and other things that I don't really know. But that's where I got from data.gov about water quality during an eclipse. Looking at the dates, I think it was actually a lunar eclipse, but I'm just going to go with it. And I need to load the file. So 2 hashtags, space, load file. And let's see, R. And my data is going to be called water. And water, oops, I forgot to clear my memory. Clear that. Water is going to be what I get when I read the CSV. It's called something. So if I come down here, this one. And I'm going to click on the rename button so I can just copy that name. .csv. And this file has a header row that I don't want, so I'm going to go ahead and do skip equals 1 so that I get rid of that top line. And once I'm done with that, I want to check the structure of that file. And so I'm going to take water and then send it into that structure to make sure that it's behaving the way I want it to behave. And I hit play. Play usually works for me. Why is play not working for me? Be great demonstration of how to get things to work when my Button's not working. Oh, R is confused. Session restart. Connecting to session. I'll get to watch me debug. So what do you do when you debug? This is a new video. So whenever I'm not sure what's going on, start over by going to session and terminate R. So we restarted. Remembered that. And when I hit play now, it's running. Okay. So session terminate R, we do. Now I'm going to clean that out and see if it will do it for me again. Okay, so there was a hiccup. So session terminate R, and then it rebooted and did what I wanted it to do. So now I've got water, and water's got 865 observations of 9 variables. And we have things like date. So this is a character string. So if I ever want to use the date column, I have to reformat it. Time is recognized as hour, minute, second time. Condition in micro something per centimeter. No idea what that is, but it's a number. That's good. ODO percent sat. I'm assuming that means saturation is also a number. That's good. So all of these other columns, everything that starts with the dollar signs a column is a number. This column's a number. This column's a number. This column's a number. Okay, of these columns, the 2 that I know are pH and temp. So I'm going to ignore the rest of them. I mean, I know time, but I care about pH and temperature. And I'm going to ignore the rest of them and just look at those 2. So those are the ones I actually care about, pH and temp. So I'm going to X this out to clear up my screen a little bit. I'm going to put my cursor here before my prepare 2 columns. I'm going to hit enter. And say the 2 columns are about are pH and temp. Okay. So now I've loaded the file, described my data, have pH and temperature identified, and they are formatted. They're both numeric. So I've got them in my head. Now I need to make my data fit the format that I need. And so ANOVA needs 1 column with categories and 1 column with numbers. And so then I can run the test. The 2 columns I picked were both numbers, and I need to do some things to them before I can really mess with it. So first, I made some space. You noticed I hit enter a few times to make space. Plus CR. I want to look at that temperature column. And I want to like split it into maybe quartiles. And so I'm going to take my water temp and split it into quartiles. So I'm just going to send a summary out there because it told me like the first quartile and third quartile and the minimum and the maximum. Wow, it got to 9 degrees Celsius. Wonder when that happened. So this is our water summary. And I'm going to have our boundaries. I'm going to have boundary 1 be 0.44, up 2. It's the median, 2.73, 3 is our third quartile, 6.2. And cutoff, well, there is no cutoff because I've got like chunk 1, chunk 2, chunk 3, and then the rest. So I don't have a 4th cutoff. Okay, so now, again, with some space. This is continuing to switch temperatures to categories. I'm going to make a new column. by taking my water and overwriting it with what I get when I mutate. Is this mutate command? If you want to read more, I don't remember if we've used mutate before. If I click on help over here in the corner, I can type in mutate and it will like bring up how to use mutate on your data. And if you scroll down, it gives you examples and stuff. So like mutate, this is equal to that thing. And so I can do different things. Mutate, I am going to make a new column that is temp category. And this is equal to what I get based on my temperature cutoffs. And so it's going to be a case when. And so again, like over here, this is a new one. I don't think I've used it for you before. And so if I do case when, I get a description of what case when does. And so my case is when my temperature in degrees Celsius is less than cutoff 1, 0.44. If this happens, then I use my tilde key, which is in the top left corner of my keyboard. I want it to say something like coldest. Otherwise, my temp degrees Celsius is less than, what's my next cutoff, 2.73. Then cold. And then my temp degrees Celsius is less than 6.2. Oops, 6.2. And in that case, I'm going to call it warm. Otherwise, I didn't do a last cutoff. So if I wanted to, I can say less than or equal to 9.27. I believe that's my less than or equal to 9.27, in which case, warmest. And if there's anything else that's going on, so like true, T for true, like if there's anything else that's coming on, then just send it to nowhere. All right, I'm gonna hit play and hope it works. Looks like nothing happened over here, but if I look over here, I've got 10 variables. And when I click on it and scroll to the far right, I have this temp category that now has things like warm and cold and warmest. And so it's got like all of these different categories that are part of it now. And so I now have a column that's got categories, and it's called temp category for temperature category. And I can do pH as my value based on my temp category. Okay, so I have prepared my two columns. So I've got one column that has categories and one column that has numbers. My numbers are the pH, and the categories are the water temperature. So run the ANOVA test, analysis of variance test. So I hit enter. I am going to do +C and var. When I'm doing a test, I like to save everything in something called results. So whatever this test does, save its results over here. And I'm going to take my water data set that I put together, and I'm going to send it into this LM. That's an L. L stands for linear model. And this linear model is going to take my pH, and this is as a function of temp category. pH should come up as well, but it was too small to really come up. And I'm taking this linear model and I'm sending it into the ANOVA test. And if I hit play, it got mad at me. Why did you? Oh, I know why. Because I forgot to say that these data come from here. Comma, and then a period. The period said take it from water. Play. So now I have results. When I click on results, I see some stuff here. And when I scan this, this is the p-value is tiny. But this is PRF is my p-value. So my results, p-val for p-value is going to be my results, $sign, and then it pulls up for me that thing. And I actually want the first, right? Remember when I looked at results, it's got like a row 1 and a row 2. I want the first row. I want the first row that came from it. And then that tells me my p-value. And when I hit play again, I don't have to, but I'm going to just so I can see my p-value showing up over there. And then my s-value is what I get when I take the negative log 2 of my val. So my s-value is 561. So how small is that? It is very small. And so the odds of that every temperature, sorry, the odds that the pH level changed the same by temperature level is the same as the odds of flipping 562 coins and spinning all heads, which means like one of my temperature categories behave differently. It could be more than one, but at least one of them behave differently. And so that's a significant difference in at least one category. Difference. Behavior. Difference in the behavior. pH levels. It's one category. And I get to say it's a statistically significant difference because that is a very tiny p-value. Because I would say no if somebody dropped 562 coins and got all hits. Okay, so if I have data and I load my file and my columns are already prepared, I can jump straight to running the ANOVA test. But if my columns aren't already prepared, I have to decide where I'm going to draw some cutoff lines. I don't have to have 4 cutoff lines. I could have 3. That would be fine. And then whatever I'm doing here, I would just send it into your ANOVA test, where this is your value and this is your category. Yeah, that's everything. This was a little bit long because we had some extra stuff that showed up halfway through. But I'll see you around. Stop.